years ago, if you had told me I would be sitting here filming this video right now, talking about identity, talking about confidence, building a business, and generally just putting myself online on the internet and being perceived by people, I would have genuinely laughed in your face. Like me, absolutely not. Because I was genuinely never those girls who secretly knew deep down they were confident. Like underneath it all, they were confident. I was never that girl. I always thought the total opposite. And I feel like that part of my story, it still feels like the strangest thing to me, because I always thought confidence was something that happened to other people. Confidence is something that some people were just born with and I wasn't. And I think that's part of why I even want to talk about this today, because for a very long time I thought this is never gonna be me. This story of becoming confident, becoming that woman, belongs to other people. I used to introduce myself as the shy girl, literally everywhere I went. And I'm not saying I was walking around saying, "Hi, my name's Maria and I'm shy," but very close to it. Internally, that was who I was. I was shy, I was quiet, I was hiding myself, and I was the girl who thought about saying something, having an opinion, having a thought, but decides not to because she's too scared about what people might have to say. And obviously, nobody was thinking about me nearly as much as I thought they were. But every single time I walked into a room, my first thought was, how am I standing? Okay, why are they looking at me? Did they just notice that? Okay, I definitely said something weird because they're giving me a weird look. And I was so in my head. And when you're so aware of yourself, when you're constantly in your head, you're not really experiencing life. You're experiencing yourself experiencing life, and that's a completely different thing. I remember looking at certain women and genuinely being fascinated by them, because they were the kind of women who would walk into a room and genuinely did not give a flying fuck about what other people thought of them. The type of women who would walk into a room and just be so confident in themselves. Women who didn't rehearse their sentence 1,000 times in their head before they said it out loud. Women who were comfortable being seen by other people. Women who would post online and didn't really care about being judged and just lived their life. And I envied them. Not necessarily because I wanted their exact lifestyle, but I wanted the way they seemed to exist in themselves. Because when you tell yourself you're shy, you're quiet, you automatically start doing things that shy, quiet people do. When I told myself, okay, I'm shy, I'm quiet, because that's what I always repeated to myself in my brain, I started shrinking myself. I started putting myself down. I started watering myself down. I stopped being excited about things, and it was just horrible. And the thing is, your brain doesn't really care about what you want to be. Your brain doesn't really care about the type of woman you want to become. It only cares about what's familiar. So if you keep telling yourself you're shy, you're quiet, you're scared of other people, you are going to repeat those exact things again and again, and you don't even realize it, because that just feels like you. That's what you have known forever. And that's exactly the part that I actually misunderstood about myself, because I thought my problem was confidence. I thought my problem was my personality, and if I just found confidence, everything would be butterflies and rainbows and I would be happy. I almost thought like confidence was sitting somewhere outside my house, and if I just found it, everything would be great. But I didn't. I built confidence in the most boring way possible, through repetition, through doing things that made me uncomfortable, through putting myself in situations that my old self would have avoided, through being seen again and again. And eventually my brain had to update its information about me, because you can tell yourself I'm not confident all day long, but then you keep making decisions, you keep showing up, you keep speaking up, you keep doing things that your old self would have never done, and it's not really gonna make sense because you keep contradicting yourself. So if you're doing things that confident people do all the time, you can't really tell yourself, okay, I'm not confident. At some point, you have to stop telling yourself the same story that you've been telling yourself in the last 10 years, because your behavior keeps contradicting it. And posting content was a very massive part of this for me, because there is something so specific about putting yourself online, putting your face online, when you are someone who is genuinely terrified of being perceived. It's not just posting, it's sitting there looking at a screen and thinking, oh my God, people can actually see me, people can perceive me, people can judge me. And then you post and nothing happens. And then you post again and the world didn't end. And then the next day you wake up and you're still alive. Nobody knocked on your door to tell you that you've embarrassed yourself. And I think it really changes a lot, because at some point after doing it enough times, there is something that happens internally. You stop overthinking about everything. You stop being like, okay, what is this person gonna think when I post? What is my uncle gonna think? What is my cousin gonna think? What exactly are my friends gonna think when they see my face on their For You? And genuinely, the biggest shift for me is I stopped convincing myself that I was confident, and I just started to trust myself. And I think that was one of the biggest changes in my life. And the funny thing is, I had no idea I was changing while it was happening. And that's the weird thing about identity change, because to you everything looks the same, everything looks ordinary, everything looks normal, but internally a lot of work is being done. And it happens in tiny ways. Like, you don't just wake up on a random Tuesday and you're like, okay, magically I'm just confident now. No, you start noticing it in like tiny different ways. You start saying no to things. You start going to places alone. You stop asking 5 different people for advice. You do things by yourself because you know exactly what you want to do. You start raising your standards. You have opinions now. And it's just tiny things stacking up on top of each other, and all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're like, wait, I am not the same person anymore. Like, what the fuck happened? I always thought the confident version of me lived somewhere in the future, and eventually I'd arrive there and I would be confident, I would be comfortable, I would be okay with being perceived, and I wouldn't care about how people saw me and if I was being judged or not. But that's not how it works. You don't just become a new person overnight. It happens by doing the ordinary, boring shit every single day. You become her through hundreds of ordinary days. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong, because they think confidence is not really something you get by doing the hard, uncomfortable things. You just get it like this. And at some point, I also had to change my beliefs about myself, because identity and your beliefs are constantly talking to each other. So if you think you are not the type of woman who can do a certain thing, you're not gonna be the type of woman who actually does those things. If you think you're just shy and you're quiet and you're always gonna be like that, you're gonna be like that for the rest of your life. So you have to constantly tell yourself, I am the type of woman who does A, B, C. And you're the type of woman who is confident. You're the type of woman who speaks up. You're the type of woman who speaks her mind. You have to constantly tell your brain who you want to be. You literally, it's like affirmations. You know what I mean? Write it down. Tell it to yourself every morning. Tell yourself that you are the type of woman who is confident. Tell yourself you're the type of woman who runs a business. You are the type of woman who travels alone, goes on cafes alone, and eventually you're gonna be that woman. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's almost impossible to see your identity clearly when you're living inside it. If you've spent the last 10 years telling yourself you're shy, you're quiet, you're not going to walk around questioning whether you're actually shy or not. You're going to see everything through the lens of your identity. You're not going to think, okay, maybe I'm hiding myself because I've learned to see myself as someone who shouldn't take up space. You're just going to think, okay, I'm just shy. This is just who I am. This is just my personality. And the moment that I've realized that, I literally became obsessed with this, because I've noticed this pattern in so many different people, in so many different women, the way they describe themselves, the way they see themselves, the things they avoid, the things they apologize for, the way they make themselves smaller before anyone else has even the opportunity to. And I started asking myself, how many decisions are you making through the identity that you didn't even choose consciously? By the way, for all the women that are actually interested in a personalized identity audit with me, I'm gonna put the link in my bio and you can just click on there and see if it's something for you. If you've been feeling like the background character in your life, if you've been repeating the same patterns over and over again, and you don't really know how to escape that identity, that's exactly the woman that I created this for. Not just be confident. Okay, we all know that shit doesn't work. So yeah, there's one thing I hope you take from this video. It's this: you are not as fixed as you think you are. You can outgrow people. You can outgrow your personality. You can outgrow your identity. You can be more playful. You can be louder. You can be softer. You can be opinionated. You can be the loudest person in the room. You can literally decide today, I don't want to be myself anymore. You can create an alter ego and become a completely unrecognizable woman. And you don't need to wait until you feel like her to become her, because that's the trap I was in. Okay, you can decide today, I want to be confident, and then you do the action. You don't just become confident. Confidence is just the result of the action. That's how identity works. Maybe that's exactly where you are right now. Maybe you're watching this video thinking about the version of yourself that you keep envying. The girl who speaks her mind, the girl who is herself, the girl who's comfortable, the girl who walks into the room and her mind isn't occupied by other people's thoughts, the girl who has the business, the girl who posts herself online, the girl who travels alone, the girl who is just so in tune with her confidence, with her identity, that she really doesn't care about other people's opinions. You're looking at her and you're thinking, okay, I wish I was like that. But what if it's not proof that it's impossible? What if she's proof that it's actually possible? What if she isn't a far-fetched reality? Maybe one day you're gonna wake up and you are gonna realize that you became her. Not because all of a sudden you feel confident, but you're not envying her anymore. That's the beautiful thing about identity, because while you're becoming her, everything feels so ordinary, everything feels normal, but internally you are becoming her one day at a time. So if you like conversations like this, I genuinely love for you to be here. I'm actually relaunching this channel, and I'm going to be talking every other week about identity, confidence, and becoming the kind of woman you're actually capable of being, and creating a life that you're genuinely excited to wake up to every single day. So if that's the kind of conversation you want more of, I'll see you in the next one.